Yes, we are all ready.
Nice. Okay. Hello and welcome to this year's Global Accessibility Awareness Day, and welcome to the Munich Accessibility Meetup. My name is Mark, and I'm going to be the host of tonight. For this event, although this is a virtual event, we would still like it to be as interactive as possible. And therefore, we prepared 3 different options, how you can get in touch with us anytime. For those of you who joined our previous event in, I think it was March, we use Slido, so feel free to go to slide.do and enter the code GAAD20 to drop your questions in the Q&A section. We will be monitoring them and we will bring them into the conversation after each presentation or at the end of our event today. We're also looking at our Twitter channel, so if you have any thoughts that you would like to contribute, feel free to pin us there at A11YMUC as our handle on Twitter. And the last option is also the YouTube live chat. We will be keeping an eye on this, so feel free to engage in that chat as well and drop us some lines. For those new to our meetup or also new to the Global Accessibility Awareness Day, I would just like to give a short intro about the GAAD for short and what it is about. Since 9 years, this is now a platform which is giving us the opportunity to take some time to get everyone talking, thinking and learning about digital access and inclusion, as well as about people with different disabilities. Because what most people are unaware of is that the quality in experience of digital services, digital content, or digital products is very different depending on the disabilities and abilities. And often people with disabilities, the experience of a product lacks quality for them. And you might think this is giving a platform to a minority, but it is actually not, because 1 billion people worldwide are said to have a disability, which means if you would put it into a different perspective, this is more people than the population of whole Europe, if you look at it globally. So it's not that we're talking about a minority, we're talking about a big bunch of people that are affected by the quality differences in experience of digital products. What does that mean in concrete? If you look at it, the most common accessibility failures are things like poor design decisions where apps or websites use low contrast text, which makes it difficult to read, not only for people that have visual impairment. Another thing is missing image alt texts, which makes it impossible for screen readers to announce the content of an image to people who rely on the technology of a screen reader, such as blind people. But it could also be missing labels on a form so that you don't know what to put in, which can cause cognitive troubles. But it's not only about technical things like technical implementations or design decisions. Accessibility is about more than that. When we started this initiative of the Munich Accessibility Meetup in 2018, we did it also for the GAAD, and we asked our audience of 16 people at that day to contribute 3 words that they associate with the term accessibility. And as you can see, one of the main terms that they contributed was empathy. So there's this one building block of technology on how to use technology the right way to support people with disabilities, but also about empathy. It means that this day should also be about us learning to gather empathy for each other, to understand how it might feel to use a website with a certain disability. And this is where we want to bring light into. And that's also the reason why we initiated the Munich Accessibility Meetup 3 years ago, because we wanted to bring together people that are curious, that want to learn more about web accessibility, and to give a platform to the inclusive design community to talk about these topics, to share experiences, ideas, and to learn from each other's best practices. And then finally, to collaborate on building a more inclusive web altogether. And by we, I do not only mean myself, I also mean my co-host and co-organizer, Nuria. Maybe Nuria, you are also in the chat here, so maybe you can introduce yourself briefly.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nuria. I'm originally from Barcelona, even though I'm living here in Munich for quite a while. And today I'm going to be part of the host. I will be watching at your questions. I'm going to be looking at Twitter, YouTube chat. So please feel free to reach us and to ask questions and to interact with us. And I will be forwarding and looking at different screens and different devices at the same time. So thank you for joining us.
Thanks. For my side, I am currently studying cognitive systems and interactive media in Barcelona, where I'm researching on how interactive technologies can be used to support children with autism and learning about social initiations and social behaviors. And it is not only about us too. There's also, for example, Sergey in the background, who's always helping and contributing to setting up these meetings. I hope he's joining us today. And there's also Fabian, who's making this whole thing possible today, because we have zero experience about live streaming, and Fabian jumped on board to support us. I hope you can see him in the live stream right now, waving at you. So thank you, Fabian, and big shout out to you for taking care of the technical stuff behind the scenes. And behind the team of organizers, we also have a big community who's pushing this whole thing forward. And without you, this all wouldn't make sense. And I'm very glad and very happy that today we have more than 360 people signed up in our community, in our meetup group, who's contributing their thoughts, their ideas, and who's contributing topics for future events and talks. So please keep getting involved into this thing. And if you have ideas, please reach out for us for future events. And talking about the future, let's talk about what's on the agenda for today. Today we have three wonderful speakers presenting us a variety of topics. We're going to get started with Beatriz telling us about accessible tools in times of COVID-19. So it's going to be a really recent and current topic. That's followed by Michael, who's going to teach us on how to make a CMS page tree accessible. He's currently working at Mindscreen as a software developer. And we're going to close with Franziska, who's also a new speaker at our meetup, and she's going to present us how accessibility in the workplace, what role it plays there, and how inclusion matters in there. So without further ado, I would say let's get started. Los geht's.
I'm going to clap on behalf of the audience, okay?
Off to the others.
I guess that is my call. One.
Accessibility in the workplace, what role it plays there, and how inclusion matters.
And of course,
Michael, please, can you please mute your mic?
hi. Somehow I got disconnected. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Hi.
we can hear you.
Awesome. So my video should be working and my presentations are loading. Great. So before I even introduce myself, please allow me to be rude and ask you to use your phone to scan this QR code, or just go ahead and open a new browser window and type this address, bit.ly/GAAD20MUC. That's GAAD20MUC. I'm using Microsoft Translator today so that you can have access to a translated script of this conversation if you need it. You can choose your language as English, and then it will be like automatic closed captions. But you can also choose any other language available on the list. You could even write or talk in your own language, and everyone else in the conversation will see it in their own chosen language. Are you ready? This is the first tool I am introducing today. And in case anyone needs some extra time, I leave the code here for a minute while I introduce myself. I'm also using English subtitles in PowerPoint, so you should be able to follow along, and I'll come back to that in a minute. So now back to me. Hi, I am Beatriz, also known as Bea or just B. I like challenges, I like people, I like difference, and I need change every once in a while. I like to help, and with time and patience, I even learn to ask and accept help when needed. I am part of several accessibility groups in Germany, but I'm mostly active in the accessibility working group of the German User Experience Professionals Association. Have you seen or heard all the buzz about hands-free handshakes, how to greet each other without having to touch anything? Some people are even shaking their feet. Isn't that crazy? Well, the deaf community comes to the rescue. We can do this. I finally get to practice what I learned in my German sign language course. You can shake your hand with open fingers, that means hello, and with closed fingers, it means bye. Or you can use the love sign. It's not the rock and roll, and it's not the aloha sign, it is the love sign. So this is I, this is L, and this is Y. And all together is I love you. And it's a symbol of recognition and appreciation between the deaf and hard of hearing community. So this is what my talk is about. We've already seen translation and sign language greetings, and we'll continue with best practices for online meetings and some facts about physical accommodations. Then I'll give you some tips on how to keep focus and a neat productivity trick that I use. I will end with a couple of tricks if you need to work at night and how you can protect your phone from unwanted intrusions. Another housekeeping item. I'll focus on Apple products, but if possible, I will provide links to the tools mentioned for Mac OS, iOS, Windows, and Android in the description of this video stream later on. We'll start with online meetings and best practices to make them more inclusive. This is my daughter online meeting setup. Yes, in our house, we all have virtual meetings, even her. In case you were wondering, she is 1 year and a half. Sometimes she likes to have really loud music in the background, and right now the smashing hits at this moment are animal songs and the Adidas. That's a song from Sesame Street in German. For this reason, she always has her captions activated. As you can see, she is also muted because she's not talking at the moment. And this way, there is no background noise for the other attendees and no distractions for the presenter. The person speaking always announces their name when they start to talk. Hi, my name is Beatrice. You can also follow these guidelines, and at least in English, Skype, Google Meet, and Microsoft Teams provide like captions that you can activate for free. Going back to these captions you see here at the top of my slides. In PowerPoint, under the ribbon menu slide show, you can find options for subtitles. I have selected spoken language English United States, and my subtitle is also set to English, but you can choose many other languages. In case you were wondering, I have selected on purpose the subtitles position to be above the slide, so that when you look at the camera, you can read the subtitles at the top, and it doesn't look like if you were ignoring everyone and working on something else and you were not paying attention. Physical accommodations are actually the reason why I chose this topic. I saw this tweet from Nicholas Steenhout. For those of you who don't know him, he hosts the Accessibility Rules podcast. He tweeted that he was seeing more able people than ever hitting the automated door opening switch with their hips or their knees. Something that was meant to increase accessibility for mobility disabled folks turned out to be good for everyone in this time of virus propagation. Abled people using something designed for a disabled person. Wow, who would have thought, right? I first saw an automatic door opening switch during my first year abroad. I attended Missouri State University and couldn't stop using them. Let me tell you this, they are great when you're moving in and out of the dorm. But I was not the intended user they had in mind when they designed it. These switches were the result of the ADI, Americans with Disabilities Act. And they were designed for wheelchair users or people with motor impairments. But of course, They accidentally also were a great improvement for parents pushing strollers, for people carrying heavy suitcases, people carrying anything in general, or just this excited Spaniard on her year abroad at her new university. The thing is that pre-pandemic, people who had working free hands used them to push the switches. Now this has changed. The switches are being used with the elbows, the hips, or the knees by people without disabilities to open these doors, where before they would be just using their hands. Then our IT lady in Frankfurt sent us a picture of our office toilet doors with a 3D printed handle that even glows in the dark, so that you can open the door with your arm instead of your hand. I mean, how cool is that? It glows in the dark. These were also meant originally for people with mobility impairments. Ha! Who would have thought, right? The talk was really coming together. How to keep focus while dealing with the stress and the chaos that working from home during a pandemic implies is definitely a challenge. Mental health issues like depression, vestibular disorder like Meniere's disease, and some medications can produce side effects called brain fog. Brain fog is the inability to have a sharp memory or to lack a sharp focus. You just really feel like you're not yourself and you're unable to think clearly. Sounds familiar? The goal of the following tools are to decrease your mental load, decrease our insecurity, reducing the fear of accidentally forgetting something, and they also help against FOMO, the fear of missing out, by helping you prioritize better. To support your mental health, you can use apps to meditate like Headspace. You can learn yoga, use a YouTube playlist to do sports. Yes, your physical health has a huge influence on your mental health and your humor. I can also recommend the Resilience course on Coursera and Penn University. This is indeed a great asset during lockdown. Now, I'm going through basic methods you know for sure, just stressing how important such tools are for people with cognitive impairments, including people under stress, like you might be right now. The goal for writing notes is that they will give you security that you are not forgetting something important. You can displace the mental load from your brain to an app or a piece of paper. The goal of checklists is to help you keep track of things that need your attention at a later point. I do hate them, but I have gotten used to them and acknowledge their usefulness. The goal of a calendar is not to forget or miss appointments and meetings, but you can also check and test how your new routine works. Maybe you're at home schooling some mornings and cannot attend some meetings. Communicate this to your colleagues. Add block slots in your calendar. Available, busy, out of the office. Make sure to reserve a regular block of time for you, even if you do nothing. Doing nothing is also important for your brain. If you don't live alone, create a common calendar where you add when you are available and when you are not, including when you are flexible and can be interrupted. Then discuss the calendar proactively to check if shared responsibilities or activities are covered. Be patient, be kind, and support each other. Have you ever forgotten where you parked the car? Or have you lent a great book to somebody and you don't know who else anymore? Nowadays, we all have a camera in our pocket, and these are great use cases. Also, the artificial intelligence image search capabilities of your device will help you find a picture again. The goal here, again, is to free space in your head for things that matter most. Microsoft products have a great tool to help concentrate. It is called Immersive Reader. I'm showing you a screenshot of OneNote in parts of speech highlighted like nouns, verbs, and syllabes in dark mode, where you can also use their integrated read aloud function. In Edge, there are also a button and a read aloud menu item to activate this function. On Mozilla Firefox, you can also activate Reader View, but it sadly doesn't work everywhere else. In Google Chrome, you can install the extension called Reader Mode. This tool is also good for people with dyslexic issues because it has also a dyslexic font, and it allows a certain level of customization. Finally, you can get rid of all those ads, all those pictures, and everything that's what was getting in the middle of your attention. In these times, some of us have the luxury and the burden of being able to adapt our work schedule to our lives. Sometimes at night, while the kids are asleep, is the great time to be productive. You can change your screen settings to decrease the amount of light and blue light. You can use night shift for Apple devices. It's called night light for Windows. And on Android, there's different options depending on your version. You can also activate dark mode to help your eyes relax. I'm going to show you how to use VoiceOver to multitask. It will also help you when you have a headache or migraine because you can close your eyes and just listen in. Open your email program, book a file or PDF in iBooks, and then click 3 times the slide key on your phone to bring up the accessibility shortcuts. Activate VoiceOver, now tap on the top of the ebook and flick down with 2 fingers. That will activate the automatic reading and will pass the pages for you. Then you can put the phone in your pocket and go on with your thing. If you run, it will also work for you too. In order to stop, press the side button 3 times again, and then tap once on the VoiceOver menu, and then double tap to select the VoiceOver that was highlighted. And you have a meeting, and the only way to get your peaceful time is to give your kids some screen time. But you are afraid your kid would accidentally send an email, delete some precious video, or call Namibia, which is not included in your flat rate. No worries, we're not judging. These are normal times. It's okay, it's not normal times. How can accessibility help me to avoid my kid making a mess of my device? Could it also help when I pass my phone to some friends or customers to show them something and don't really want them to have access to all the content on my phone? Yes, this accessibility function is called guided access in iOS and screen pinning on Android. The last tip is not directly an accessibility tool, but there is an iOS app called PicaView where you can provide a read-only photo gallery. So if you show your phone to your customers or your kids, they only have access to the folder you give them and not to the whole camera roll. In the end, my main recommendation is go ahead and learn more about the accessibility options on your device. Chances are high that you haven't been using your device to its full potential, and this might be finally the time to change that. I don't know if we had time for questions. Nuria or Mark?
Thank you so much, Beatrice. I'm going to take the applause for the audience this time. For sure, we have time for questions. Let's see. Nuria, do you have any questions from the audience?
From here, well, Ralph actually asked whether the slide will be available afterwards or whether we can share it somehow, because I think that you provide very good tools, overview, and might be useful for the people.
Yes, I will try to add the links also maybe on the comments, and I can arrange with you a way to share the slides. Also, I just remember another trick. It happens to me a lot with the calendar, that I activate Do Not Disturb modus on my Macintosh, and because there's some notifications coming around in the middle of a meeting, and if you forget to turn it off, then you're not going to get any other alerts for next meeting. So it's a thing to keep in mind too.
That's very good tip.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing this. Maybe you can tell us a bit, what was the biggest win for you in all of these? If you had to pick one, what was the biggest win for you to discover that?
So I think the thing I'm using the most is the iPhone functionality, so the read aloud functionality, VoiceOver, that is usually meant for blind people. So I have a lot of books in PDF format that I never get to read because my eyes get tired. So what I'm doing right now, I'm using that when I go to bed or when I'm doing other things. And I already gotten used to the Apple voice that I chose, and I configure it to the proper speed that I don't get too overexcited or too crazy about it. And I think my video went yellow, right?
Yeah, your video is broken for some reason.
Okay, in the settings, but anyhow, I guess I'm so far.
Cool. Maybe one last question is any of the, so you said the email tool was the biggest win for you personally. Is there anything that you also took into your workplace as maybe like an empathy tool that you use for getting into the perspective of somebody else to try out features or something?
So for that, I have different plugins that I use to achieve empathy. And so let me try to see if I get the camera working again. This is the demo gods failing me again. So
It's currently working.
It's currently working. Okay, I don't see it anymore. Awesome. So yes, I have different plugins that I use to gain empathy. So you can simulate different disabilities and get developers or yourself to try your pages or on the work you're doing. And yeah, what I'm also using a lot is captions in all the meetings that I'm going to, because we have different colleagues from different places, and some of them have different accents. And if we have a meeting in English and there's German accents, I'm Spanish, then also Italian people, we have a lot of people from Prague. So it can get messy, if mostly also if people talk at the same time. So it's a great support to have it, also if there's noise around you right now.
Thank you so much for sharing all of this.
You're welcome.
So I would say it's time to move on and see CMS trees being made accessible. Michael, are you there?
Yes, I'm there. So I will start to
Stage is yours.
try to start the presentation. So I hope you now see my screen. Thank you for your introduction, and thank you for the accessibility tools I got to know by the previous talk. I will now show you how I help to improve an existing open source tool in terms of accessibility. So my talk will be about making a CMS tree accessible. About me, I'm Michael. I'm located in Munich, and I work at Mindscreen with a focus on accessibility. I'm also the lead of the Typo 3 Accessibility Initiative. I will talk a little bit more on that later. Yeah, so Typo 3 is a CMS I am working with a lot, and it is an open source CMS. It is multi-site capable with multi-language support, and it is used by large institutions like universities. So it is capable to handle a large amount of pages. So having a good page tree to navigate these pages is quite important. The status before I was starting to improve the accessibility was that Typo 3 has an SVG page tree. So to the ones that do not know SVG, it is a vector-based graphic. So there are no links like in normal web pages. It is just SVG groups and elements. And it was not usable with the keyboard at all. So yeah, you were not able to navigate in the page tree using the keyboard, only with clicking. Earlier versions of Typo 3 had an A tag for every page. So A tags are the links in normal websites. And this made users able to go to the single page with the keyboard, but it is not the best way. So in the end of 2018, there was an issue created in the issue tracking system of Typo 3 named page tree is not accessible via tab key anymore. And the first patch was that was suggested was adding A tags for every page element again to make them accessible. Well, accessible in terms of you can tap to every page. That would have restored the old behavior before the SVG tree was introduced, but it is not helpful in if you have a lot of amount of pages, because you really would have to tap to every page before you go to the next part of the CMS, like adding content or things like that. Well, I thought if the solution suggested is not good, maybe I should start and plan how can I do it better. So in the beginning of 2019, I had the first ideas that I would like to fix it in a way that is helpful for everyone. So what did I do? I got in contact with the community. I asked a lot of people on bar camps like the Typo 3 camp in Munich, where people meet and talk on everything around Typo 3. And in September 2019, I realized that the Typo 3 accessibility initiative that was there was inactive because no one was taking control. So I asked, can I maybe restart it? And I was happily welcomed, and they invited me to take the lead of the accessibility initiative. And asked me if I would like to take part in the Typo 3 Initiative Week, which is 1 week in October 2019, where a lot of people working on Typo 3 in initiatives meet and work together to improve the CMS. My idea was to fix the page tree in 1 day during that week and get to know to the community and work together with the others. So first of all, I want to give you a short view how the page tree looks like. So it is similar to the page, the folder tree in the Windows File Explorer. And so I thought, what would be a best practice to work with it? And I found the tree view pattern of the Y-ARIA rules guidelines, and it behaves like the Windows File Explorer. So a lot of people know how it works, what keys are there to use. And so I said, okay, I will try to adjust the page tree in that way. So what I thought the page tree structure will look like is a nested list of pages where you have the root page as a top element, and then as a children, the pages of the first level, and every page that has children has a set of pages as children. Well, it was not that easy. It was a little bit harder because the tree is an SVG image now, as I already said, and it is not structured as a tree. There are plain lists of elements in this SVG. If you know SVGs, you maybe directly see there is a group of nodes, which are actually rectangles. And then there is another group of so-called links, and there is a group of nodes. I will dive a little bit more into this. So the nodes BG are is a plain list of SVG rectangles so just graphical rectangles that are used for the event handling and the selection highlighting. So you cannot go there with the keyboard. The links are just SVG paths, so just lines on the screen. They draw the visual representation of the tree structure, so the connections between the pages. And the nodes, that is the part where the where the icons and the icon overlays and the name of the page are inside. So that was not all, it got even harder. For each group of these, only the nodes visible in the current viewport are present in the DOM. So you not even have all nodes of the page tree. And not everything is available for the browser accessibility tree, so it cannot be forwarded for accessible software like screen readers. And there's no logical grouping of children. So you cannot decide if the next element in this list is a sibling or a totally different node on another level. So how did I manage to get the browser to know how the tree looks like? I needed to tell the browser a new structure that is not really there. As there is nothing, and I was not able to change the current way of everything rendered, because you cannot switch the view. It was not an option to change this, because if you have a lot of pages, you cannot create all the DOM elements because the browser would be stuck. So there is something called YARIA, and it helps you to virtually restructure the relationships between elements. You can, for example, use ARIA owns to tell the browser the intended relationship. There's more information on this link I entered here, so you can go deeper into it there. What I did is hijacking of the link path as groups, because every parent for sure had a link. I can use this link element and give it the role group. With this role, the browser knows this is grouping something. And with the ARIA owns attribute, I was able to tell this group what the children of this group are. So I can group all siblings together. Using the nodes as the actual tree was the second step. So I gave this nodes group the role tree, and the elements inside the nodes tree the role tree item. Now I had to tell the parents what the children of this parents are. So I added the ARIA owns attribute to every parent and tell this parent the group identifier of the link that groups the children of this parent together. It sounds a little bit complicated, and it was a little bit complicated, but I managed to do it. So to give you a better overview, in this page tree, you have the link, which is the line drawn here to the pages element. And this line has the group identifier 65 in this thing, and it groups all the identifiers of the children. The node pages has the identifier 65, not the group 65, but the node 65, and it owns the group identifier. So this way it knows it's a parent and it has children. Additionally, I had to add ARIA attributes for the level inside the tree, the set size, which is the number of the siblings, and the pos in set, which is the position in the list. If a parent is expanded, I also add ARIA expanded true, so the browser knows it's an open parent node. For a simple node, so a simple page in the page tree, it only has the role tree item and the ARIA attributes for the level, the set size, so the number of siblings, and the position in this siblings. So the tree structure is done, but it's not enough because the browser does not have the interactions with this tree implemented using the ARIA attributes. So we have to do the interactions with the keyboard on our own. So using the keyboard tab key is normally to go to the next focusable element. But inside a tree widget, the focus change is done using the arrow keys. So this needs to be implemented. And so if someone is outside the tree widget and taps, he got to the first, to the only focusable element in this tree view, and then changes the focus inside with the arrow keys. And if he uses the tab key again, he's out of the tree. So if someone wants to navigate inside the tree, he doesn't have to use the tab key. There are other keyboard interaction requirements. So the home and the end keys need to be handled to go to the first element in the list and the last element in the list. And also the enter key and the space key need to be handled. The enter key should activate the current focused element, and the space key should also activate it. But for a select tree, it should select it. As I figured out, the select the page tree of typo 3 is used again as a select tree for categories in the content elements. So that also needed to be handled. Yeah, so a short keyboard navigation demo. I made a screencast. I hope it works. So you can see down here which keys I'm pressing, and up in the page tree, you can see the actions in the page tree. So if I press the down key, it goes to the next page. I press it multiple times, it goes down, and if I press the right key, it opens a parent and shows the sub elements. If I press enter, it opens the page. If I press left, it collapses the tree elements. And for example, if I press position 1, which is home, it goes to the first element in the tree. And so that worked. Now I have to go out here. So we are accessible now. Well done. But are we done? Wait, we are still not done, because what happens if someone will break it in the future? We have to ensure it keeps working in the future. On large open source projects like Typo 3, literally hundreds of developers are contributing. So we need to ensure that the accessibility of the page tree is not affected without the need of having a personal look on every upcoming change. So I implemented front-end testing as they are part of the job that needs to be done. We implemented a basic set that ensures the required functionality for focus change and keyboard interactions. So yeah, at the end, everything worked with inside the existing testing framework that is already testing every feature and everything that is added to Typo 3. So as a summary, how did I manage to get it done? I got in contact with the community on Barcamps and using the Slack channel, that is a communication channel for Typo 3. I participated in a community sprint event, which helped to get a deeper inside view of how you contribute, and it was very helpful because during the week I had a lot of help of multiple core mergers, so persons that are actively developing the Typo 3 core. It was at least 8 persons working together with me from time to time, helping me, giving hints. Yeah, so it was very helpful to get it done. We had a lot of discussion. We added everything into the ARIA attributes. We added all the keyboard interactions that are required, and we added the tests to ensure it keeps working. The idea of fixing the tree in one day during the initiative week did not work out. But at the end of the week, with lots of work, the page tree was working as expected. Actually, everything was finally in place and merged into the master branch and working by the end of that year. So it took a little bit longer than expected, but in the end, it worked. So thank you. And yeah, I'm open for questions.
Thank you so much, Michael.
I hope it was not too technical. Well,
no, I think it was super interesting. People might be a bit like, if you're like me, a designer, it is hard to follow along if it's really technical, but I could follow along quite well. That was really interesting.
Okay, nice.
Nuria, what are the questions saying? Do you have some?
Yes, we actually got one question in YouTube and a couple of them in Slido, actually. So Max is asking if are all the common browsers supported, and how is the performance in general while implementing something like this?
Okay, so it depends. So all browsers that are supported by the CMS are supported. So Internet Explorer 11 is not supported by the CMS any longer in version 10. So the browsers that are supported by the CMS are also supported support that. Regarding the screen reader, it is tested with Chrome and NVDA as one setup, because we did not have the time to test it with everything, every combination. That is a little bit hard and a lot of work. But if someone figures out there is a problem, we can for sure help to fix it. And there was a second part of the question. Can you maybe repeat it?
It's the performance in general, because
okay,
I'm feeling that looks quite heavy.
Well, the performance of the additions so there's not a lot of addition to what already exists. So it is not a performance issue when of the addition. With very large pages, with a very large amount of pages, the Typo 3 backend has some performance drawbacks, but because only the list of elements in the viewport is rendered, it is not that big of a problem. There is another issue in the background because there is a JavaScript structure having all the pages, and that is the real problem of the performance, but that doesn't have anything to do with the things I did.
Cool, thank you so much. Then there's another question. You more or less already answered by the end, but it's how would you recommend someone who's trying for the first time to implement something like this, how to get started?
Well, the first thing is if you implement something for open source software, there most of the times is a community. So the first thing is to get in contact with that community and try to figure out who can help you. Because most of the times there are some kind of community manager that at least can tell you, go to this person and he will tell you more. So that would be a suggestion. And there are also online documentations. For example, for Typo 3, there is a quite good documentation how you can add something to Typo 3. There's an explanation how the setup is done for the working on Typo 3 and how to commit, and everything is explained quite good. So yeah, you can either contact someone of the community or try to find the documentation how it is intended to be done.
Thank you. I think there are some more questions, Mark. You have?
Yeah, I saw that Franziska posted one question in our chat here, and I had a similar question, so maybe let's try to merge them. Franziska is asking if you get any feedback, like thank you messages or stuff like this after the fix, so that you would know how the changes helped. That would be interesting to know. So how did you deal with user testing and user feedback?
So I got feedback from core developers. They said, well, finally I can use my keyboard with a page tree, because technically very involved people like developers often like to keep their hands on the keyboard, and they are very happy they can do it in the page tree now. We did not have yet feedback from people like a blind person using Typo 3 or something like that. But that also might be because it is implemented in the most recent version of Typo 3. It is version 10, and that just came out some weeks ago. So it is not that widespread in the usage already.
Okay, so let's see what's still coming up then in that regard.
Yep.
Cool. Thank you so much, Michael.
You're welcome.
Is there another question?
No, that's it. I think you already provide some links on your presentation, so hopefully we can also get the slides and the people can also look at these links and contribute as well and check all the documentations. I think that would be very interesting, but thank you so much. I'm just gonna take the chance right now to also thank everyone who is in the live stream. Say hello to everyone as well, and thank you so much for the interaction, the questions, and also the people in Twitter. So please keep asking questions, keep reaching out us, and we will forward here on the screen.
Exactly.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Michael. And then without further ado, I would hand over to Franziska and why inclusion matters, how to deal with accessibility in the workplace.
Thank you. I will briefly share my slides and then we can get started. So you should see the slides just about now. Can you see the slides?
Yes.
Yeah, this is working.
Great. So thank you for having me. It's really great to be on this meetup, especially on a day like this, right? Global Accessibility Awareness Day. So finally, we can use that bank holiday for something meaningful. At least that's what I thought in the last days. So yeah, inclusion matters, accessibility in the workplace. That's the topic of my talk today. And what that means and what that includes, I will delve into in a minute. A bit about me and why I am talking about this. So in my main job, I'm a people lead in engineering, which means that I manage IT teams with POs, designers, front and back end QA engineers, and probably a couple of other roles as well. From sort of a disciplinary and a coaching point of view, we have dual leadership, so there are tech leads as well, but I manage these teams from that point of view. Currently, I have three teams. And I'm also a freelance consultant, mostly in developer relations and community, and a couple of other things as well, including accessibility. And incidentally, I'm a co-organizer of the Accessibility Meetup in Berlin, which is how I got to know this meetup and now how I get to talk here. I'm very active on Twitter. You can find all of my musings and thoughts under the handle _frenzied. So tweet, so that we can get the message out on a day like this, so that a lot of people can take away really good thoughts and really good approaches. And thank you, by the way, for the two speakers that came before me. Really, really cool insights. I will probably follow up with you. So why am I talking about accessibility in the workplace? Obviously, being a people manager, that is something that is on my agenda as well, and something that is important for me. But I have a much, much more personal view of that because I live with chronic illnesses. In fact, the one that we know what it is called factor V resistance, which is a genetic disorder. It cannot be cured. About 5% of the Caucasian population have it. The rest is thankfully free of that. And it affects everything that has to do with blood clotting and blood circulation in the body. So pretty much everything. And due to some unfortunate incidents, I also have extensive microbiome damage. So food intolerances, and Beatrice, you mentioned brain fog. That is something that people with that have a lot. I'm luckily free from that, but I have a whole host of other challenges. Lost 15 kilos, so it's quite a challenge sometimes. Just living with that. But it also gave me this view of, okay, what can we actually do, especially in the workplace, and especially when you have things that are not well researched, are not well known for people. When you see a blind person or when you interact with a deaf person, it becomes pretty clear very soon what they have. With me, that's not the case. When you look at me, I'm functioning, I look healthy, at least at first glance. And just having that perspective really is important for me. And also, I get some really, really interesting reactions. So I have things like, to me, you are normal. I don't see your disability at the workplace. This is a direct quote from one of my managers in the past, who probably it came from a good place. He wanted to assure me that, yes, you're completely normal. But for me, it's actually like, yeah, but why are you categorizing me? Why is this happening? I was totally confused. And at the end of the day, quite disappointed as well. Are you sure it's not psychosomatic? One of the classics. We get that all the time. Yes, I'm fairly sure. I know the physical symptoms. So yes, thank you very much. But again, it comes from a place of you want to help. You want to sort of have this hope of maybe it's not there, but it's actually doing sort of the reverse. You poor thing is also one of those classics, which I'm not. I always say that having chronic illnesses, you are very motivated, you are very research invested, you have to take hard decisions on a daily basis, which are all really, really good qualities to have. So when we look into what are we actually dealing with, especially at the workplace from an accessibility point of view, a lot of you will probably be much more familiar sort of with than the average person because you have looked into accessibility. But just for a brief overview, of course, we are dealing with disability, which can be visible. As I said, people that are in a wheelchair, that's one of the most touchable aspects, basically. But we can also have non-visible disabilities. And there are also temporary disabilities. So maybe people have had surgery, they need to regenerate, so they might have temporary situations that they usually don't have. Then we have chronic illnesses, which have this wide spectrum I know a lot of people with chronic illnesses, and they are as diverse as you can imagine. Both the people and the chronic illnesses, and also within a chronic illness, you can also have quite large spectrums. And neurodiversity, I mention it always, not because it's necessarily a disability, but it can, with a lot of people, lead to mannerisms that might not be easy to understand for others. Usually it's also associated with people on the autism spectrum, and people that have ADHD, dyslexia, dyscalculia, and so forth. But sometimes the people who have that, who live with that, might need some accommodations in the workplace as well. So I listed it here as well. But as you all, or hopefully know or will know, is that accessibility is not just about having sort of designing products, devices, services, or environments so that they can be used by disabled people. It is there to have everyone be able to use that. And the interesting thing in this definition is that it's not just digital products. We hear a lot about web accessibility when the term accessibility comes up. It's about environments as well. And those can be digital, but those can also be physical, right? And the workplace, whether that is in home office as we have it currently, or whether that is in a company, that is an environment. And obviously, there's all kinds of assistive technology that can help, lots of tooling that we can use. Beatrice spoke about a lot of them. Thank you, Beatrice, for this cool insight. I will not delve into specific tools today, but I will give you a good understanding so that you can basically find out which tools or which technology is helpful. So how can you actually realize accessibility at the workplace? I have brought 3 very good friends of mine to tell that story, and I would like to introduce them to you now. Meet Samira. Samira is a backend developer. And Samira has recently been promoted to senior backend developer at Singapore SAS provider Calendar Candle. She has been deaf since the age of 5. She experiences severe back pains due to arthrosis. She needs time to realign and focus during the working hours often. She chose Calendar Candle specifically because there was already a hard of hearing developer, so she didn't feel alone, and she also felt that there was a support structure that was already there. And she finds it challenging to interact with her colleagues at times. Most often, her being a backend developer, this happens during the daily, where, of course, everyone is talking. Also, Singapore being a place where English is not everyone's first language, obviously, that can be as well challenging for Samira. So how can you how can you support Samira if she was your colleague? You can support her by having sign language interpreters at the workplace. In Germany, they are actually paid by programs that are offered as well. So you as an employer do not even have to pay for them. I had a colleague who was deaf at one of the companies I worked at. And for the large gatherings, we regularly had a sign language interpreter. But sometimes it's not just for the large gatherings. Sometimes it helps to have them also there for smaller get-togethers. Cell phone. As simple as it sounds, but Samira can interact a lot better with her cell phone by typing on it and showing messages to the colleagues, or the colleagues can type. She can interact much, much better with them. It's a very simple thing if you think about it, but might be a bit of a hurdle when you work in a team or in a department where usually there are no cell phones available. But basically every cell phone comes with a lot of assistive technology already as it is shipped. So for Samira, her cell phone is her lifeline to interact with colleagues that are speaking. Captions, obviously. As I said, in the stand-ups, Samira has difficulties often understanding, so captions help her. The team dials in to sets up a video call to have captions at the same time. So Samira can look at the captions and she can see, oh yes, this is what is being discussed. She can add her own thoughts to this, and that helps her immensely. And that also helps her in one-to-one interactions, obviously. Workplace setup with her back pain and so forth. How can you set up a workplace so that it's usable by everyone? Sometimes maybe there's not a budget to have standing desks because they're super, super expensive. but maybe there's an alternative construction, like one of those cardboard options that you have. With Samira, have her sit in a space where she can watch who's approaching her so that she's not alarmed because she cannot hear anyone approaching, something like that. So it doesn't seem like much at first glance, but these are easy and really simple to use steps that you can already implement to make Samira feel at home at the workplace. And in her case, because she needs to realign and refocus, it helps to have a quiet room in an office space, and hopefully we can at some point go back to the office again, just to have one room that can be a prayer room, that can be a medical room, that can be a dedicated quiet room, just for people. And that includes also people who are not in this situation of Samira, but still need some support and still need some space just to have a little bit of quiet time. So a simple measure of having one room can already increase accessibility for more people than just Samira, and for people that have other conditions as well. But Samira will feel very much included and supported with this kind of setup. There's probably a lot of other things you can also take, but this is sort of the core. Meet Charlie, community manager. Charlie is lead community manager at London gaming studio Game Bus, and they are a wheelchair user. They can walk very short distances though. They have an undisclosed autoimmune disease. Charlie did not feel comfortable talking about which autoimmune disease they have. Charlie fears the company's activity days because usually they take place in a hotel, and Charlie doesn't know upfront whether there's an elevator or there's good access. And with the past activity days, they haven't really taken that into consideration. Charlie cannot make use of the provided food because of their autoimmune disease. They often have to bring their own food, and they have to really be careful what they actually eat. So again, activity days, hotel provided food does not work for Charlie. And Charlie feels lonely as they are the only one in the company who are different. Again, with the activity days, not a lot was taken into consideration. Charlie wasn't consulted beforehand, and there is not another person basically who is out or who's identifying as living with some sort of condition. So if we look at that and Charlie's situation, more than just, let's say, digital technology can be seen in the context of accessibility. To support Charlie and to increase that accessibility for them at the workplace, we can obviously think about ramps, elevators, handrails. When you move to a new office, consider if there are these things in place or if you can have them put in place. Oftentimes with protective measures around old buildings, that's not always possible, but you can think about ways and means to actually make sure that this is happening. Or that Charlie, or people like Charlie who are living openly with something where they can indicate that they have special needs, that they sit in an area or they are working in an area where this is possible or where they can be provided. Obviously, disabled toilets is one of those standard things that actually every employer should ideally have, which oftentimes is not possible. I think that's one of the most critical things that we can look at. But thinking about that already helps, especially when you choose new environments. Flexibility in remote working. For Charlie, it's best if they work from their apartment because the apartment is fully adapted to Charlie's needs. And just having, apart from Corona times and apart from Corona home office, having the opportunity to have video calls and to have Charlie feel included even though they are not in the office, that already helps immensely. Having alternative activities on days out. You probably have seen some of these really great job sites where the company boasts about, we went mountain climbing for the last activity. This is great for you, but for people like me who I have bad days where my joints are just really, really aching. Charlie, for example, would be completely horrified by the prospect of having to have sort of very physical activities on days out. And that already includes a big, big chunk of talent out there that you could get if there was another message, which is there are alternative activities that everyone can do, or there are more activities so everyone can pick and choose. And with the food, sometimes it's not just about sort of the fancy tooling or the fancy equipment and the big costs and so forth. Sometimes it's as simple as having an anonymous survey asking for food preferences. If there's someone on the team who has allergies, or as in Charlie's case, has an autoimmune disease and they need to take care, sometimes you cannot even cater to any of the preferences, but you can at least try. And you can give people, whether they want to be out or not, the opportunity to tell you so. Meet our third friend, Kwame, who's a technical writer. Kwame is originally from Ghana, and he joined Action, the provider of an accessibility suite in New York. He immigrated to the US to have better working conditions. It was good in Ghana, but he felt that in the US, companies are a bit more inclusive. He is legally blind, so that means he cannot see contrast or anything like that. He does not have full use of his vision there. And that is a mistake, by the way, sorry. He uses the company screen reader all the time, obviously, to do his work, whether that is looking at code, whether that is looking at his own texts. And interestingly enough, with assistive technology, some systems have better built-in support, other systems have less good built-in support. Sometimes you can get that support, for example, by installing a screen reader or having some tooling that connects or that helps, for example, with using an IDE, using other programs as well. But generally, screen reader is something that already helps Kwame immensely. He, however, cannot sign off on articles because he cannot see the pictures in the articles, and he cannot provide all text. So he is supported by colleagues with design reviews on that. So he does rely on other people to have him sort of do the final step, which does not mean that Kwame isn't the super awesome technical writer he is. He loves writing and he writes amazing texts. And he is at the same time disappointed that Action caters well to his needs as an accessibility suite provider, but constantly disregards employees with less severe illnesses. So there were some comments in the company that, oh, this person is not as heavily impacted as some other people, like, for example, Kwame. And so it's not that important to look at that. So he feels that, especially as an accessibility provider, the company should think differently and approach that differently. So how can you support Kwame and how can you support his colleagues? Screen readers, obviously, as I mentioned. Voice technology is super awesome. Voice technology works in so many contexts. It's not just about using like a laptop, even using an elevator, for example, or getting around a building. Voice technology can help immensely with that. People who are out, people on the team who feel comfortable enough to speak about what they have and what they live with, right? And as an employer and as a colleague, you can contribute to making that atmosphere happen. You can enable this kind of atmosphere for other people. So please don't hesitate to, if you have something, be bold, courageous, speak about it. Or help others to be able to speak about it, make them feel comfortable and welcome and included enough. And then, of course, also this matter of weakness is accepted, right? Oftentimes in society, disabilities and chronic illnesses are seen as something that, oh, this person is like suffering in the corner. In Germany, we have sort of this terminology, gefesselt an den Rollstuhl, which means chained to the wheelchair, which is horrible if you think about it. I see it differently. As a person living with chronic illnesses, and Kwame obviously feels the same, we take hard decisions on a daily basis. We are faced with having to research a lot and advocate for ourselves. And those are all really, really good qualities, especially managerial qualities that we bring to the table. So actually, and plus having a very, very high empathy level for other people, for ourselves in our perspective, and thereby seeing that for other people. So that already makes a team super diverse, super creative, super accepting and embracing. And that is something that can actually be celebrated instead of being seen as a weakness. Anti-bias training obviously helps with that, right? To make sure that people just think about what kind of approaches they have, what they think, how they act, how they speak, and just to reflect on some of the things that they might have done that they could do differently. This helps immensely. I participated in some, and I can tell you this is great. It can be diversity training, anti-bias training. There are lots of opportunities out there. And my personal favorite is obviously coaching, being a people coach myself in the workplace. Sometimes you can do mentorship, you can do training, you can do all of those things, but people need to come to their own conclusions. And helping them in one-to-one settings or in a team setting, in a team coaching, to realize how, for example, to give feedback, to be open to feedback, to create an inclusive culture. That is a really, really good toolbox that does not need any assistive technology, but basically needs your brain and your focus and you caring about the people on your team to do that with them and to go on that journey and that path with them. So when we look at all of that, as I said, there are a lot of tools, and we have seen some of the tools mentioned in the previous speakers' talks, which is amazing. At the end of the day, especially when you're an employer, when you're a colleague, when you're a friend even, the most important thing is your mindset and how you approach things. Ask yourself, do you perceive a difference between the normal and the unusual? How do you perceive people with disabilities and chronic illnesses, and how do you actually talk to them? Because once we change our mindset, once we have sort of that switch where we do not perceive the seemingly unusual as unusual and accept that there are a lot of realities out there, lots of perspectives. My reality does not have to be your reality does not have to be mine, but we can still embrace and tolerate that and take that into consideration. And if you do that, you will already be in a state of mind where accessibility is not even an afterthought. It's something that you embrace and that you proactively do, because you don't assume that basically that is the unusual. So just to summarize some of these thoughts, don't assume that everyone can eat, do, or practice everything. If you just go away from that assumption, that is really, really good, because it already changes your thinking. Don't reduce people to their disability at the same time, right? We do live with the things that we live with, and that's one of these aspects. I often get asked, I meet a person in a wheelchair, can I ask them what they have? Yes and no. Get to know them first. Get to know their personalities, their hobbies, their interests, what they love, what they dislike. And by having that, you see that people are multifaceted, and this is just one aspect of them. At the same time, don't negate a disability. If there is someone who needs a tool or who needs an accommodation, it's obviously good to know about that, to take that into consideration, but just acknowledging that sort of in a quiet way. If somebody explains what they live with, don't overrule them or generalize, especially in the workplace. If somebody is brave and courageous enough to come up to you and say, look, I have this and that, and I need some extra accommodation or extra support, believe them first and foremost. Believe them and take that into consideration, because, as I said, we research so much. We are experts in our field, so we can clearly say what works for us, what doesn't work for us, and how we can create a thriving and inclusive workspace for everyone. Try to remember without making a fuss. This one is kind of obvious. I always enjoy when people remember some of the specifics that I live with and that I need, and just take that into consideration and seeing that as, okay, this is her reality and this is my reality, but I can still see it from her perspective, but I'm not making a big deal out of it. It's just, it's Franziska's normalcy in a way. And I love that. And those people are sort of my favorite people on the whole planet who do that. This is amazing, and you will already make a huge step in this. Asking is okay with some people and not with others. I'm an example. I'm very, very out. When I was job searching, I went on a stage and I talked about what I have and what I live with. And that's good. For some people, they just don't want to, and you should not force them. If you ask and they don't give you an answer, this is their prerogative. You can still ask, of course, but some people are just not really comfortable with that, maybe because they haven't yet found that there is an acceptance or that they are embraced enough. So it's okay to not disclose everything right away. People with disabilities can be high performers, and we are high performers. I always say that I've proven my worth in gold, and my brain is still, and even if my brain wasn't functioning, I still have great abilities and things that I bring to the table. So just because one thing might physically or mentally or in another area not work as you would expect it to, does not mean that we cannot be high performers. We can be, we are, and we have that drive. Work with everyone to create working conditions to thrive. That is the most important thing, right? As I said, listen, embrace, think about your mindset. And then once you provide those working conditions, that can be small change, that can be a big change, big impact, whatever it is that you do, if you have that, you will see that people will surprise you and they will create awesome, creative, super amazing things, products, if we're speaking about tech, that take a lot of perspectives into consideration. And we all know, the numbers all tell us that the more diversity we have on a team, the better it is. And just to give you one example of, or just to summarize, the most important thing you can have is heart. If you have that, you will succeed. And as I said, you will be our dear friend for the rest of our lives, and we will cherish you, and you will be one of our favorite people. And to give you one example to summarize and to end this talk on some of the really, really low-level things you can already do to increase accessibility and inclusion in your company, is having a people manual. A people manual is basically an artifact, is a document that you have a person write. That can be a person in your team, that can be a colleague, a boss, can be someone that reports to you. And I would recommend that everybody writes that. A people manual basically encompasses, and this is my suggestion, by the way, how I would describe myself, what I expect of others in the realm of interaction, communication, behavior, culture, what is important to me, specifically in values and beliefs and habits and rituals, what I need to thrive at the workplace, which can be health and well-being and workplace design, and just to spice it up a little bit to add some interest, because we're not only work-focused. And by giving people, by having everybody do a people manual, everyone can choose whether they want to have a one-pager or they want to write 6 pages. They can choose how much they want to disclose. But by having everybody write something like that about themselves, you normalize this behavior of actually talking about your needs and your accommodations in the workplace, whether you have a disability, a chronic illness, or condition or not. And I can tell you, I've implemented this in 2 companies now. The insights you get from your colleagues and their working styles and how you can actually work better together, they are amazing. For me, in some areas, they have revolutionized collaboration with them. It's really, really happy. And it made our collaboration much, much better at the end of the day. So I can really recommend this. My example you find here, which I did at the current workplace, where I also very, very openly, as a people manager to my direct reports and vice versa, talk about the fact that I do things sometimes differently, but it's all right, it's okay. And this is how they can actually support me, sometimes by not doing something and sometimes by doing something. And by being this role model, trying to be this role model, trying to be open about it, by coaching people, by enabling them to not fear repercussion or not having to fear repercussions when they talk about this, you already put your whole company in this mindset of increasing accessibility. So this is what I can recommend you. If you have any questions on any of these aspects, I'd be happy to answer your questions. And please do not hesitate to advocate, advocate, advocate. This is what we need to make our workplaces healthy, accessible, and embracing of all people. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Franziska. Thank you for sharing all of this and also a lot of personal stuff in that presentation. Nuria, are there any questions that you gathered?
This is fantastic. I think that you got the people really thinking deep, because everything become very silent. I think people are absorbing, digesting the stuff. Even myself, I was like, people manual. I definitely need to try that out. So I've got one question actually. So basically, right now, with the current situation that we are with coronavirus, actually changed a lot the way we live and the way we work, right? how you, a person with like a chronic illness, experienced that. Was that somehow a change that helped you, or it's something that helped you also strive this message actually?
One of the first things that I think I tweeted about that as well was like, for me, not a lot changes. But also I feel like a lot of people now experience my reality, which is good, which is increasing empathy, because stuck on the weekend at home, you cannot go out, you are lying on the couch unmotivated. Welcome to my world. So I was like, yes, this is good. People will actually understand. I think Nuria is gone now. Yeah, she was kicked out. Just to continue, so it was really good to have that perspective and to have people experience, as tragic as it is, and it's horrible to hear of people dying and so forth. I try to see the good in that situation. And this is, and also just to have sort of that normalcy of remote working, where a lot of companies now say, well, it actually kind of works for us. Why don't we continue, or why don't we have remote first after all of this? This actually helps. I'm not saying that every person with a chronic illness or disability will want to work at home, but I'm not saying that it's not something that can help. So it can help. It can and it cannot. You have to assess the individual situation. But yeah, from that perspective, I was just, this time finally, people will realize how it is.
It definitely changed a lot the way all of us also scope the work environment in general.
Yeah,
so we've got a question more in YouTube. So it says, actually it's from Beatriz, you want to ask it? we cannot, I cannot hear you, we cannot hear you, Beatriz.
The bottom. Do you have any templates or resources to kickstart the People Manual initiative as an example?
Yeah,
maybe
this
you share that.
Basically the template that I came up with. And yes, I'd be happy to share that. If you need that template, I can. Basically, the template is what I listed in the slides, and then it's up to the person to fill the spaces. But I found that having a structure helps people, because in the first company where we implemented that, as I said, one person had a 1-pager, and mine was a 6-page full of sarcasm, loaded with quotes and funny stuff. And then that can be overwhelming for people as well, right? So to provide a structure, you sort of give them, think about your habits, think about your beliefs, and then they can fill that blank. But at the end of the day, it's up to them. So I'd be happy to share my specific People Manual with you. I'm very open in this. But generally, it's on the slide, and if you follow that structure, then people can color in the lines.
Awesome, thanks a lot.
Okay, Nuria, any further questions or?
Nothing around here. I think that's.
Okay, maybe we can gather all the speakers together. Maybe Michael and Beatrice, you can join the round again. Nice, sweet. First of all, thank you so much to all of you who participated in this, and also to the people that took the time to watch our talks and participated in celebrating the GAAD today. I would like to ask you folks here in the chat, maybe also Nuria, you can participate. If there's one thing today that you've learned, like what are you taking home? Is there maybe one thing that blew your mind, or you're like, oh wow, okay, I didn't know that?
I can start. Beatrice, your aspect of brain fog and how you deal with that impressed me a lot, because as I said, with microbiome damage, you get to exchange a lot with people that have brain fog. And just knowing how I can give them advice on how they can be supported, that's amazing. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, brain fog was also the thing that impressed me the most, because I always think, well, I forget things to do that I should remember, and I will definitely need to take notes and do more calendar entries that everyone knows where I am on what time, and that is for sure helping me in the future.
Yes, we struggle a lot actually at home with all the setup. We have a little kid, there's no kindergarten, there's no support, and we both work full time. So you need to find your tricks and there's a lot of tricks out there that people already use, so it's great to have that. So for me, on the Typo 3 elements, it's a bit out of my league. I used to do Typo 3 like when I was in sixth, like many years ago, and accessibility was not even a thing back there. And from you, Franziska, I take the people's template that I'm looking forward to implement in our company.
Following up in these lines, I would also say, yeah, the people manual, definitely. As a person who is a team lead myself, I think this is something could be very useful to understand a little bit more the people and accommodate us a little bit, because sometimes you take just things for granted. And that should never be the case. And I think that this is just a little simple exercise that could help a little, especially in teams, to get to know each other as well, and actually to make the space more inclusive for everyone. So thank you so much. But for all of them, actually, it was really, really insightful, all the presentations.
A pleasure.
Okay, to sum up that event, thank you again also for sharing these insights. To sum it up, we're already looking forward to our next meetup, which is number 7 and probably coming up in July, August. So stay tuned on our meetup page for the final date. And if you would like to contribute in any way, I don't know if we're going to do it virtual or not, that's still open for discussion. But if you want to contribute, for example, as being a speaker, feel free to go to bit.ly/alimuk and submit what topic you would be interested to present. And we're happy to be in touch. The link is also in the YouTube description, but feel free to reach out for any other channel that we have, like Twitter or Meetup directly, if you want to get in touch. Also, if you have questions for the speakers afterwards, feel free to drop us an email or contact us through Meetup. I'm happy to forward them and get you guys speaking. Otherwise, I think this is it for today. Dankeschön from our side for joining in or watching it later. I guess that video will be available on YouTube afterwards. Yeah, happy GAAD, everyone, I would say.
Thank you, everyone, for us. That was great. It was really great to meet you all. And thank you for following up on Twitter and in YouTube as well, everyone. So have a wonderful evening, the rest of you.
With that, thank you and goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.